Episode 82. We got a super special guest for you guys. I'm really excited. I met Rob a few years ago through a good friend of ours, a mutual friend, and he's been coaching us, my COO for I don't know, a year now, and he's a stud of a dude. He's a stud in the industry. You guys will know him once I get to release the name. But Rob, it's a pleasure having you here. Rob is the COO of Rove Pest Control. That is Lenny Gray's company, the door-to-door millionaire. So he's the brains behind everything, I think. And then he's also a father and now author, which we're going to talk about. And we have some really exciting news that we're going to share with you guys at the end of the show or in the middle of the show. Got an event coming up that we'd like to share and talk about. But Rob, again, thanks for everything that you've done for us up to this point, and thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a true pleasure to work with you. Between the conversations I've had with you and with your new operations patch, it's been super fun to see you guys grow and develop, and everything that we explore. I've just learned a ton from the outside perspective, your insights, a lot of the experiments that you're doing. Everything that you seem to be touching is just turning to gold. So it's fun to try and break down what's going into that and what the special sauce is. So I feel special being part of that on the podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think, just learning from people like yourself that have been through this before and for many years, and there's no special sauce really to anything. Just like taking what you've learned from others who have been there, done that. It's the shortcut. So just follow what others are doing that have already been there and done it, and makes it way easier on us, So you guys paved the way for us.
I totally agree on that. That special sauce is working with each other and learning from trials or mistakes that each one of us make along the way, or even just the successes. Like, we never know what the next step is going to be, but if we can gather information from colleagues, people in the industry, and knowing that it's not going to be exactly the same in our given market, or, what worked 3 years ago might be slightly different now, but going in with that background information rather than stepping in blind is always going to be the better recipe for success, statistically speaking.
I definitely agree. And now Rove Pest Control, they're 8+ figure business at this point, and they're getting big. Why don't you just kind of talk us how you got into the industry, how you met Lenny, like where you started, and like bring us your come up.
Yeah, for sure. So it all started back in college, where I had originally gone to college to go back to work in the family business, truck parts in nowhere, Idaho is really where I planned on being and thought I was going to be.
You went to Brigham Young, right? If I remember correctly.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, okay.
And my RA across the hall, he was going to go sell pest control for Eclipse Marketing in Orkin, kind of the grandfather company behind all of this. And I thought, if that guy can do it, I'm sure I can do it. It seemed a heck of a lot better than going and working for dad again, which that was the ultimate goal, but I wanted to wait until I had a degree and kind of could step back in, not as the kid, but maybe as my own person. And went down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I didn't have a car. I just caught a ride with the RA and rode down there. And while I was down there, that's where I met McKay Bodily. He was he was running the branch in Albuquerque. And then Lenny was coming through doing sales training. He was the national sales trainer for Eclipse back then. And I can't remember exactly what it was. I think his flight got canceled and he ended up getting stuck in our branch for longer than he intended. And so then he ended up rooming with me just to wait until his next flight came up. And that was where all three of us kind of connected, and went, did a 2-year mission after that, vowed that I would never do pest control again. I even kept my binder full of all the canceled contracts to remind myself of how bad it sucked. And when I got back, then McKay and Lenny reached out to me. They'd got things going out there in Utah. I was a little bit of a hard sale, but they got me convinced to go help them out for 1 year. And then they sold me on 1 year more, and then just one more year. And then, 20 plus years later, here I am, just totally immersed in the industry. I'm not sure where that tipping point was between I can't stand this and just one more year and kind of the pest control for life type model. But yeah, you might have some more insight into that than I do, as what happens in a person's brain to make that happen.
I think that none of us in the industry, I don't think any of us said, hey, I want to go kill bugs for a living when I get older. I really don't think in it, but I fell in love with it. we're this far into it. Like, it's so much fun, and it's just not about killing bugs, it's just about helping people. And I always say that we're a customer service company that just happens to do pest control. Love dealing with people. I love the sales side. Love the marketing side. It's fun. Operations is more your thing than it is mine, but hey, that's fun too.
Well, looking at your operation, it would be hard to convince someone of that, but I do really love the operations. And I think there's a lot to what you said, that it's a unique industry in that we get to help people that have specific problems that we can step in and really help and solve those. And then we're also helping people as collateral help, people in the neighborhoods. We're just improving the public health or the situation around them. And then you also have, with it being the type of industry it is, we bring a lot of people into their first job or into their first career if they maybe had some part-time or hourly jobs before, and we really get to help people set the foundation for their life. And it's the team that makes it happen for the community that's also being benefited by it. So there's a lot of help going on.
I agree with that. Rob, who were you in high school? Like, if you and I are juniors and seniors in high school, who is Rob in high school?
You probably would have avoided me. So, yeah, I kind of bounced around a little bit. I had gotten a pretty bad injury. Like, up to freshman year, I was the wrestler, and like that was my calling in life. And I took a good smash to the head that might have helped redirect me in more areas than I realized. But that kind of took me out of the sports scene. I couldn't pass a physical after that for a long time. So I ended up jumping into Business Professionals of America, competing in that. I did the soccer club because club sports didn't need a physical. So I was good there. And outside of that, it was just, hanging out with friends, a little bit of rural life. So we had, one of my friends around the outside of their field, we had built a little BMX track. So we do a lot of that. Did a lot of rollerblading. It was the 90s. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's cool. Yeah, I've seen a lot of your posts this year about your kids wrestling. And that's my background. I coach wrestling. My daughter wrestles. My stepson wrestles. Like, my younger daughters wrestle when they get older. So it's just cool. And I think 50% of our team at this point is all wrestlers too. That's
awesome. What do you think it is about the wrestler mentality that lends itself to the things that you're drawn to there?
I think it's just the grind. Like, it's a dedication and commitment, and you have to have in that sport. It's tough. It's brutal. Like, just waking up and running and cutting weight and being super disciplined in your diet. It's all of the above. Like, it just teaches you so much. And I loved it as a kid, and I loved coaching it. And now it's like, and I don't know what it is. Like, all those things, like, as I got older, like, I look back, I'm like, man, that really set the tone of who I am today. And now I want my kids to wrestle. I love hiring wrestlers. They have a different type of work ethic, I'm not saying that other sports don't, but they're different, man.
It is very different. And the dynamic between the individual and the team is something that you don't encounter on a true team sport. Or
right.
I've even tried to find it. Like, I coach cross country, and there's a little bit of team element in there, but it's not the same as wrestling, where you're going onto a mat with a teammate, where you have to provide enough opposition to that individual for them to improve and progress, but not so much that you're going to smash their face into the ground, and take them out for the day. Like, there's a fine balance that you have to have, and there's a strong give and take among the team that I think really lends itself to life and understanding how culture works in an organization, because it does become a lot more of an individualized but team guided element there.
So if you haven't heard about Gorilla yet, it's a super sick software. It's actually made by one of my really close friends, Chris Mareshi. So Chris built Gorilla to help streamline his own personal business over 10 years ago. But now Gorilla is used by over 4,000 companies. And today it's become one of the most premier platforms in our industry. So what's really unique about Gorilla is that it's a simple all-in-one solution that's really easy for your team to use. Gorilla offers a seamless onboard experience and best-in-class support with no additional cost. It's all included in your subscription. Inside the software, you'll find a whole suite of features features, scheduling, invoicing, routing, and sales pipelines, integrated VoIP, text messaging, and pretty much all the automation you're going to need, and much, much more. So if you guys are still relying on paper or spreadsheets or fighting with an old software, I highly recommend that you guys check out Gorilla. So we have a link in our description. Click on that and it'll take you right to their free trial. Now let's get back to the show. Not most, but half of our sales guys are wrestlers, and they're used to being on their own, on the mat, but also part of a team. So like now that I think about it, like that actually makes a really good sense of why they're good, because they're ultimately, it's about them, but then they're supporting a team. So at the end, everyone's points add up. So it actually works out really well.
Yeah. That's awesome. So were you a collegiate freestyle Greco-Roman? What was your
up here we just did folk style. So just normal wrestling around here. Freestyle is just getting big recently. Greco is too around here. Folk style is still the biggest, but as like my daughter gets older, she just took 5th in the state this year.
Hey, congrats to her. That's cool.
Yeah, she lost in double overtime in a 4th and 5th place match, or for 3rd and 4th place match, but she was right there. So she was never going to be number 1. She was never going to be number 2, but she can hang with the 3rd, 4th for sure. But as she gets older, she has, like in college, is all freestyle. I mean, she already has her college picked out. She already knows what she's doing. So she's going to wrestle for Team Michigan this summer. So we're excited about that, doing some freestyle wrestling. So yeah, it's fun.
Oh, that'll be fun. I'll have to keep tabs on her, see how she does. That would be fun to have someone to track through the Wolverine program there.
Yeah, she's a killer. She's fun to watch. You know, she gets to beat up on some boys, and I feel bad for them, but she works hard, man. Like it's hard. I don't know how to explain it. That girl works her tail off, and she deserves it.
That's awesome. A good example. I'm going to have to share that with my daughter, because she was watching my son wrestle and was commenting how she wants to do it. And I think there's a little bit of trepidation, maybe being the first girl in her school to step up and do it. But I mean, tell her about your daughter, and then that'll push her over the edge for sure.
There's so many opportunities for girls in college now too. It's one of the fastest growing sports in college is girls wrestling.
That's cool. We watched and we went to the state tournament here for high school, and we were surprised how many girls were out there, and they were putting down some big moves and really holding their own.
Yeah, it's amazing. Pretty cool. But yeah, so that's just kind of like the makeup of our team. But yeah, so like I saw your pictures and online about wrestling, so that obviously was going to come at some point. I was like, good time to chat about it.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's a fun common connection there.
Yeah. So like as your role as COO, what does your day-to-day look like these days? What are like maybe some of your top KPIs that you like to track?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really love about my position is the day-to-day can change so much, and it's usually based around 2 things. It's either projects or meetings, and most everything I can shuffle. If something major comes up that really needs addressed and is urgent, everything can wait a little bit. Nothing's ever having to get done right now. But I like being able to play the more long-term game and look at what we're developing for the coming year, or even like one of the meetings I had yesterday was about some legislative things that got proposed that are going to be hitting in 2026, and trying to strategize and be ready for how we're going to deal with that if it passes, what we need to do to try and preempt it or get some exemptions in. That's the kind of stuff that I really like to work on. We just launched a new termite service for our Phoenix office, and we spent a lot of time deciding which direction we wanted to go there, running some, test experiments, doing a lot of studies. Outside of that, the meetings, like I just spent an hour strategizing with our company that's handling a lot of our search engine optimization, that type of stuff. And then it's really just kind of trying to be present in enough meetings to pick up on nuances. I know that, your frontline workers are going to have one perspective, their supervisors are going to have a different perspective, and then each level up is going to be looking at things differently. And it's going in and listening for those little tweaks that can occur that might have really big implications for the culture or for the long-term strategy of the company, that we can maybe pick up on some trends that are coming in a little bit quicker by hearing what the people out there dealing with the bugs or dealing with the customers are hearing. and then just trying to weed through that, sort it out, and figure out what direction we want to go.
Yeah, I like that. How many people report to you directly?
Directly, I have 3.
And who are those 3? Not names, but what positions or roles in the company report to you?
Yeah, I have my director of operations, and he's a guy that is better than me at operations. So anytime I have an idea, I run it by him, and he will tear it apart and show me all the holes in it.
Yeah.
And so our meetings are fun. I have to dedicate the most amount of time for that. We have what I would consider like super healthy conflict, but we almost always disagree. And that's one of the reasons why he's so valuable to me is we don't see the world from the same way, and we're able to really push back on each other. And it can get emotionally driven. Like if I have a project I'm really sincerely caring about and I bring that in and he doesn't like it, or vice versa, he has an initiative that means a lot to him and I'm pushing back, we can, feel a little bit of emotion in there, but still have healthy conflict and always come out happy that we met. And we know that both of us are going in to try and help the other person. And so it's just a matter of helping each other communicate what we need to or find those flaws so that we can improve it. So, that's probably the most fun part with him. The others are sales department heads. So we have 2 of those currently who oversee inbound sales, outbound sales, commercial sales, and any other, direct sales initiatives that we're putting together. So
yeah, I love that you said that you have conflict in your meetings. I was actually just listening to podcasts myself, and they're talking about board meetings in general. How like it's hot in those board meetings, like big board meetings, $1 billion companies, like it's effort after effort after effort. Like that's just how they roll. And I like never really pictured that myself, but ours have conflict too. But like you said, it's more of a healthy conflict. Like we're pushing back on each other. I'm trying to drive revenue, and they're like, wait, hold up. Like we got this stuff going on. Is it a this week thing and this month thing or next quarter thing? Right. And I've gotten pretty good about that, but there's just some things where like I'm so passionate about that I have to get it done sooner than later.
Yeah, exactly right. What do you do to ensure that becomes a part of your culture and doesn't slip? Because it's real easy for somebody reporting to you to want to make you happy and be a little bit afraid to speak up. And especially if you're talking about a technician that got hired 3 months ago, they might have a really good perspective on what's going on, but they might be afraid to share it either with their supervisor or especially you several layers up. So how do you deal with that?
So they usually report to their manager, and then the managers will bring it to the leadership meetings. And I want them to push back. I need them to push back. Like that's why they're there. Like I might have 10 ideas, but only not one is good. So I want them to push back. I mean, say why, like, and you said, find the flaws in what I'm thinking, the how I'm thinking, and tear it apart. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But at least I know. Because I come up with 1 million ideas a day, but I need them to push back at me for sure. And I tell them that. Like I don't get mad, I don't yell, I'm not that guy. But just tell me that I'm wrong and I'll have to process it with you. That's just how I handle it.
I like it. Do you tell them prior to the meeting, after the meeting?
They just know who I am at this point. You know what I mean? They just know, like, I want you to push back. Like, you're on the leadership team for a reason. Doesn't mean that I have all the answers. I'm not the smartest person around all the time. Like I want pushback. I want to get better too, and operationally, my director of operations is so much better at that than me. My CFO is so much better at financials than I am. Like I let them do their thing. And if I have an idea and they'll push back on me, but I want them to.
Well said. Yeah, I think you hit that on the head where it's one thing to say it. And I've seen a lot of people try and implement the pushback or the feedback by stating it, which can be important to explicitly state it. But if it's not felt in the organization that you actually desire it, or that's rewarded, or that change comes from it, where, maybe lots of feedback is taken and they thank them for it, but it never ends up anywhere in the organization, they don't see the results of it, it's going to eventually die off.
I agree. So you were talking about, you started off as a sales rep. First question, how many accounts did you sell year one? Year
one was, I think I netted 175. I think gross was 250. It was rough. There were a lot of financial cancels down in the Albuquerque market. And I say financial, but it's probably just how bad I sucked as a salesman. Like I realized pretty early on it was a numbers game, and I liked my sales manager. He was fun, and we hung out, but I don't know how much I really learned about sales. And I just got to the point where like, man, the more people I talk to, the better. So I just started running from door to door, and that's how I would double the number of people I talked to. And that was the only way I could be successful. So
That's funny. So then how do you go from, sales rep year 1, 2, 3 to branch manager?
yeah, that was when I came back year one, going back into pest control. Hit somewhere in like the 300, 350 mark. I can't remember what it was. I had a goal. And then as soon as that goal was hit, I was traveling to South America. So that was just like my cap goal. So after that year, I think I had recruited a person to be on my team. And then the next year, I recruited several more. And so we had a couple of different teams going. And so I was joint managing teams, multiple teams with Lenny. And so I think in that particular setup, I was able to demonstrate not only my ability to attract people onto the team, but also to manage individuals, manage teams, and demonstrate my ability to think on a higher level besides just that initial tactical stuff. And, given a few more opportunities, then really, I would have to say it was probably a big gamble. I would like to say that Lenny McKay saw some really special thing in me, but I think it's just one of those things where I showed a spark and had enough of a basis that it was what they could work with and teach a lot too. And I was, in the right field as far as what I had studied. I had my degree in business management, so I had some formal training with that regard. And from there, it was just stepping out and picking which market we were going to go to. So then it was off to Minnesota. And man, it's laughable how little I knew at the time and how much I had to learn. But it was just, finding that first customer, learning the ins and outs of a good service as I went, talking to a lot of manufacturers, going to conferences, even hopping in. I got a lot of benefit from the University of Minnesota and their entomology program and being able to connect with individuals over there to really learn that there's a deep science behind it. And all of that just slowly kind of came together through a lot of years of experience and trial and error and reaching out to anybody that I thought knew more than me.
That's awesome. And then I think I might know part of the next story from where you're branch manager to COO, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the story that I was told. So I know you guys had multiple locations. Lenny and McKay decided to sell some off, and there was one stud who happened to be you that was the best branch manager that they had, and they pulled you in to oversee the operations, everything, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think there was a lot of hard work and a lot of knowledge that were in there, but I think there's also a lot to be said just for serendipity and being in a good market and having some good connections with some good teams and being able to build things. It's got to be at least 50% luck looking back on it, but a lot of things came together, and it was a really good runway that was built to platform off of and go in a different direction. So whatever role I played in that and whatever role Fortune played, it was a good place for them, and I happened to be there, and here we are.
That's super awesome. And how many locations are you guys at right now?
We have 5 now. Inside of each of those, there's like in Minnesota, for example, we have some small satellite ones, but just main operations 5.
That's awesome. And I know I kind of brought this up earlier, but what are some of your favorite, maybe top 3 or 5 KPIs that you track religiously?
Yeah, I've started drifting a little bit from the ones I watch because my director of operations is so good. He really worries closely about the accounts receivable, the lost revenue, cancellations, like your main ones. What's been more fun to dive into has been running experiments on our materials and supplies, or the inventory rates that we're running, the reservice rates that we're looking at, not just from a perspective of, fewer reservices is better, but how do we get the right reservice rate to where we're helping solve problems, but not pushing things that shouldn't be there. I think those have been some really fun and interesting metrics to play with and see where we go. The one that we've been working on recently that I think we really got to a good spot was working on our, we call it the Slack program. So it's basically like, how much cushion do you build into your labor expense on all levels so that you can have enough to cover everything that's being done, but then to have enough cushion that you can take care of fires that come up or other problems and still be able to have people constantly being trained and having enough time to be able to take off and keep themselves up from a personal standpoint, and finding that perfect balance where we're not just running an efficiency from the straight P&L standpoint, but a person and relationship management standpoint as well. And it's cool, when we ran it, we were trying to figure out like how much cushion could we build without breaking the budget. And then as we refined this program and got all of those training pieces built in and those time off pieces available as they should be, we actually came in at a lower cost overall. So we're finding that productivity and satisfaction are increasing as we create that. And we're just tinkering around with experiments, trying to find the perfect balance in there. So that one's been a lot of fun to tweak and refine as well.
What would you say maybe has been one of your one or two top struggles while growing the company that the listeners could learn from, and we could all learn from?
Yeah, I think the number one toughest thing is knowing when to turn on growth and to be willing to limit it. Like, are we ready to start growing in this area? Because I can look back and see a couple of examples where, we bit off way more than we could chew, and we're still paying the price for some of those. And, 5, 6, 7 years later, we're finally getting some pieces in place to rectify it. We hit some home runs along with it, but it would have been nice if we could have had that crystal ball that could have told us which one was there and which one wasn't. And it takes a lot of gumption to be able to be deep into a growth avenue and be willing to pull the plug on it and say, yeah, it wasn't right. And it's so easy to try and force fit that and say, no, like, we've got this sunk cost, who cares? We're going to keep driving. We're going to build it up. So I think that's been probably the number one thing looking back. The number two is the other side of that fortune coin, where there's just like, sometimes you're just going to draw bad cards. Like, there's going to be a bad turn in the market. You're going to jump in right before an economic crisis, or you're going to hire an employee that has a really bad hidden agenda, and there's nothing you could have done in your interviewing or background checks or anything to weed that out, and just to be able to accept that and say, sometimes this crap happens, and how can we cut it out as early as possible and not hang on to it longer than is needed.
I like that. So going back to the first example you gave us, like chasing revenue versus EBITDA, right? Like, everyone's just constantly chasing revenue because they want that top line all the time. But at the end of the day, what really matters? So you're saying you almost wish you would have pushed, took a break for a while.
Yeah, definitely making sure that everything is producing down to that bottom line, because it's real easy to double the size of the organization and be making exactly the same amount or half of that without building any momentum. And I think the momentum piece is the hardest to measure. Like, where is that momentum, and where are we going to take advantage of that will pay off 2 or 3 years down the road? That's not real obvious right now.
Yeah. And have you guys done any acquisitions in the past few years? Are you planning on doing acquisitions? What are you guys doing about that?
Yeah, we did a handful of them last year, and we are in the middle of working on a couple right now. So I think acquisitions are a lot of fun.
They are fun. When you're looking at companies, again, for everyone on the podcast to learn, there's smaller companies on here. What are the companies like yourself looking at when you're looking to purchase companies?
The more acquisitions that I do, the number one thing I'm looking for is fit. how well does their service align with ours? How well does their customer culture align with ours? Because, it's one thing to have a really good EBITDA, but if they're offering different services that don't fall in line with what our strengths are, or if they have certain connections in certain commercial sectors that are going to disappear when they go, those kind of things can really flare up down the road and make it hard to retain things. But outside of that, it's the standard. How well run is the company? I kind of like to look for companies that maybe we're not looking for something that's run perfectly, but we want to see the problems that they have aligning well with our competencies. So if they're not good at inventory management, yeah, that's fine. Like, we can fix that. We've got those systems in place. So that's going to be a good problem for us to pick up because we can fix that. But if we've got some personnel problems, that's not something we want to pick up and bring in. If we have customers who are used to being able to pay, 6 months down the road after a service, that's something that's really hard to turn around.
For sure. Do you like buying companies with a team already in place, or not quite there yet?
I could go either direction on it. So we did one last year where it was a one-man show and he needed to take off to go with his wife. She got relocated for work, and that was going to be a better opportunity than continuing the business. And he was one of our better acquisitions, and it wasn't where we picked up any additional team members with that. We just picked up the accounts and everything went really smooth. There's other ones where we're picking up where we really want to see several experienced people come in that can supplement our team, maybe even, improve the culture with some of those individuals coming in, add some leadership into there. So I think either one is beneficial. It's just, what's the mix and what are we picking up that's going to be of value?
Yeah. And are you looking for more commercial, more residential? Where are you guys at these days?
I don't really care much on the mix. I think we tend to look a little more commercial, but it's much more about the fit. I would rather pick up a straight residential company that's a great fit than a straight commercial company that's in a lot of services done in ways that we don't typically do it. Or doing a bunch of like bird work, for example, which we just don't want to do. Yeah, that's not the kind that we want to pick up. So
more commercial so you can keep your techs busy year round?
Yeah, we actually do pretty well with residential and having enough work to do for them. So I don't think that matters too much, but there is a lot of really good consistency throughout the year that comes with a commercial that's easy to plan around. So there is that huge advantage.
Do you like seeing a certain split of revenue, like 80-20 or 70-30 residential versus commercial? Anywhere you like to be?
I think my preference just for our core competencies is probably around 60 to 70% residential, but we're continually growing our commercial side and we haven't been running into any problems with it. So I wouldn't care if we flip-flopped as a company. And so I think because of that position where I think we rewind the clock 7-8 years, we really needed to lean towards residential. But at this point, we're very competent in both realms and probably have a lot of unrealized strengths on that commercial side that would be fun to just provide more fuel into that side of the business.
6-7 years ago, because of the service alone, maybe not knowing as much, or more of a revenue standpoint of cash flow? I think
it's a combination of both. I think By building the business, we created a little more flexibility to develop more arms and legs within the moving animal that we created. And we were able to have some more room to run some experiments and to play around with some of the different styles of treatment, some of the different tools out there, and have a more robust offering. So yeah, I think because of getting over certain tipping points in revenue, we were able to really focus on improving that service and improving the operations that made it so we could comfortably and confidently take on new challenges and even go into areas where maybe we're a little bit new on the block from a commercial standpoint, but we're innovative with the offerings we have and we can provide a better service than what's been the standard in the industry.
Cool. I love that. Last question around the business itself, and then I want to transition to some other cool things yet going on. Because I told everyone that we have a really cool event coming up, so I wanted to share that. But what do you think the industry will look like in the next 5 years?
I think the industry is going to, I think there's a part of it that's always going to be consistently the same. And I think it's those smaller companies that are the technicians or the salesmen that break off and start it, and they get it up to whatever that ceiling is, that is their experience or their drive, that, it's going to be really hard for them to grow beyond that. Outside of that, I think with a lot of the private equity coming in, and it's not just in pest control, it's interesting to watch it. I've been tracking it in things like veterinarians and very, very similar industries and how they were built. I think that's going to have a big impact. And then I think the automation that can come from a lot of the AI pieces, as those are starting to get refined and more readily available, I think that's really going to transform how operations are run, how sales are done. And I think it will become a little bit more difficult for people to step over that middle ground. Like, it's one thing to go and sell your neighbors and hit some of the close by networking elements, but to be able to jump in and become competitive with click ads or all the different marketing channels that are out there, it's not yellow pages. We've seen a lot change over the last 10 years, and I think it's just going to accelerate in that direction. And that middle ground is probably going to get more and more sparse, and there's going to be a lot more competition to be able to have larger platform companies where you can be a powerhouse in the industry and be able to get the volume and bulk buys on those marketing spends and have it be a good ROI that can be sustainable.
So do you think that's good for the industry, or do you think it's bad for the industry?
I think overall it's going to be, it depends on what you're looking at. Like, if you're looking at the small owner, that's very different than saying what's going to be better for the end consumer. But
yeah,
I think, especially with a lot of the concerns out there with pollinator health, with exposure to pesticides, even right now, things with PFAS coming out and how that's tied in, I think there's a lot of environmental concerns that are going to require a higher level management and a higher level operation to be able to provide a really good service. It's going to deliver results to people without having those negative impacts that are going to be fighting that continuous battle on the legislative front. So I think in the long run, it's better. And I think even the small one-man shows are going to be able to ride that momentum eventually. It's just going to be a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario, or a waiting game, like trying to be able to jump into that, and when is it feasible for somebody?
Yeah. Do you have it? Are you guys implementing any 25B products into your arsenal yet?
Yeah, we've had some. We put that into play probably a decade ago, just when they were first released, and it was for just a few customers here and there, which I'm glad we did at the time because we had a lot of experience with it when it became a little more widely desired. Have you guys done the same?
Yep, same thing. And again, it's just like you did. First adopted it because, just had those people that wanted it. And now that we're into it, it's like, I actually really enjoy it. I'm glad that we did it. And you can charge more. You can charge more for the service as well. And yeah, it's all around good. And it's one of those things that a lot of people aren't doing yet. So people come to us just for that reason,
Exactly right. And you hit on a really good point there, which is the being able to charge more, because you're adding a lot of value to that person. If they're in, shopping mode and they talk to 10 companies and it's not there, but you have that value add where you can offer that and provide it in a way that's going to reach their desires and their goals, that's huge.
Yeah. And I think that same customer isn't too concerned about how frequent you're there. And and I actually think that we've seen a reduction in callbacks with those same customers for that reason alone. They don't want to see you as often. They'd rather not.
Yeah, I mean, you can provide a lot more education with those individuals because they have more of an interest in what you're doing, and you can explain to them how it'll go, and they get that peace of mind and that comfort with maybe way different results than somebody would get with your standard pesticides, but they're much happier that way.
Yep, I agree. Super awesome. Let's switch gears a little bit because we're running out of time fast. We're already 44 minutes deep into this thing.
If you wouldn't be so darn interesting, we wouldn't have that problem. Is that what's been driving your YouTube? I know you had an explosion there.
I talked about that a little bit. I think that the YouTube itself was just something that I did for fun. Like, I was just I was having fun with it. I wasn't doing a whole lot of it. My mentor told me 5 years, Jonas, YouTube, 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 YouTube. That's where it's going. Video, video, video. 3-4 years later, finally, I was tiptoeing in it for 3-4 years and finally went all in. A year and a half, 2 years ago, Sofia, something like that. I don't know. And I think a lot of it was just I was posting content just to teach people what we were doing and how we were doing it. And then hired a team. I got Sofia and I got Dalton. I got good editing. I got better style videos. And again, then it turned into a full-time job where we're posting 6 days a week. But it was gaining so much momentum we couldn't stop now. And I have a team behind me, so now they got to eat and they got to, they have to feed their family. So now I can't stop doing it. So it's fun. Like it's more fun to me doing that than anything else. It doesn't pay the bills yet, but it's still a lot of fun. But I will say, like, it's given us a huge brand recognition online. Huge. Like the first time I ever heard, I was in Boston at Pest World last year, year before. And like, hey, you're the TikTok guy. And I was like, what? Like, hey, yeah, you're the TikTok guy. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah, you're the pest control guy on TikTok. That's the first time that I heard it, but now I hear it all the time. So yeah. And then got to the point where like, okay, just like anything else, like you need to learn from people who are in front of you. So I hired a coach who's been there and done it. He has multiple people that are millions of views, and he just started like 4, 5, 6 months ago. We were stuck for a while. We just needed to get unstuck, and I couldn't figure out why we were stuck. So I hired a coach and brought him in, and we were super close. Like I asked Sofia, like we weren't far off, and just a few tweaks here and there, and it shot off like a rocket.
That's awesome. I think it's really illustrative there. Just you're not looking at a coach when you're at D or F grade level. It's when you're at A and you want to hit the A plus. Like you just need those fine tweaks, and it's that outside perspective that really can look in and see what's going on. And I think that combined with the other leg of that momentum driver for you is just finding what called to you and what made sense, where you could have an authentic reason to really drive after that. There's so many ways to grow a company and so many ways to build that brand awareness like you've done. And if companies would just find out, just be willing to step back and say, what do I like? I don't need to do everything. What is fun? What do I like? And what can I do well? They'd find a lot more success with that than trying to copycat everything that everyone else is doing.
Yeah. And I think last year, and again, that's just something that makes us different. Like we get a lot of recognition in town, our guys in the doors, like they have kids following around yelling like, hey, you're the YouTube guys, like all this. Like we've built a really big brand online, and we're one of the bigger pest control, YouTube channels at this point, which is pretty cool. But it's kind of like anything else. Like the first time you hit like 100,000 in business or 1 million in business, it sounds really cool, but it's just one of those things like, it's just part of the process. And we have such big goals now that you don't really think, you forget to like celebrate those small wins, but yeah, it was pretty cool. But what I was going to say is like, I think last year I tracked like 35,000 revenue from YouTube to the business itself just last year.
Wow.
And the channel was a quarter of the size that it is now.
That's awesome.
Because people are watching stuff, and bugs are bugs, and they're gross and disgusting, and they see it and they're like, stop to look at it. And then next thing you know, there's hitting 15, 16 other of our videos, And then we had a few videos that did 10 million plus and brought in 8 to 10,000 people at a time. So big videos help.
What's your standout video when you think of one that was your favorite?
There's a few bed bug ones. There's a few mosquito ones that did really well. There's a lot of just everything. Like you never know which one's going to take off. Like you just don't. Like, I mean, I was on a cruise with my daughters and I was like, hey, Maisie, come on, just help me record some videos. So I was bored on a cruise ship and shot like 10 videos. Like every single one of them but one has hit over 10,000 views. And like one the other day hit 10,000 like the first hour and a half. So it's cool. Like my family gets involved with it, and my kids loved the plaque when I got it. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. My dad's a YouTuber, blah, blah, blah. But like, cause when they were young, they're like, hey, I just want to be a YouTuber when I'm old. I'm like, don't ever say that. Like go out and do something with your life. And here I am, with a plaque. But again, it was never meant to be that. It was just doing it for fun. And here we are.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. But it's just like anything, like I said, like my goals are so big now that the 100,000 really isn't a big deal. Just keep trucking along because we got bigger goals than that,
Oh yeah, for sure.
So we have an event coming up. Why don't you tell us about the event? I know I'm super excited when you guys announced it. Why don't you tell us when the event is? And I know we're going to put a link in the bio so people can go, go register for the event, and tell us like what it is, what you're going to do there, speakers, things like that.
Yeah, for sure. June 6th and 7th, going to be in St. Paul, Minnesota, one of the suburbs there, just Oakdale. Probably the most exciting and appealing thing for people here is Jonas is planning on being there, and we're going to get a little bit of insight into some of the things that he's done to hit that YouTube threshold. And I think those, whether you care about YouTube or something else, the lessons are going to apply just as well to whatever calls to you for how you want to grow your business. Also talk about hitting that threshold of 100 sales in a day. I think there's a lot to be learned from that. But I'm going to be speaking there. Lenny Gray is going to be speaking there. We've got some other experts in the home service and pest industry, where basically what we want to do is just bring a small group together where we can say, hey, here's some of the trends. Here's what you need to do to be able to take your business from the level you're at to the next level and do it quickly. And it's an introductory course on some key principles. And, even people like you and I that have really dived deep into this stuff, and it's been a lot of the core things that I know you and I have talked about. Like, it's that reinforcement. It's getting together with other people and seeing how it's being implemented and saying, oh, crap, yeah, I know all these principles. I've heard about all 10 of them, but how many of them are actively being practiced in my company? How many of them am I actually employing in my own life, or am I just letting my business run me? And I really like that it's right now in the heart of that spring summer transition, where it's much easier to just say, oh, let's just hold on for the ride. Let's get to the other side of this, and then we can think about strategy. But it's in the guts of that time where the best strategy and the best tactics are going to come out, where you can really look at yourself honestly and say, when everything's crazy, this is how stuff looks. And so what do I need to do now? And what do I need to do in the future to be able to get there? So that's going to be that 2-day conference. There is really going through really key stuff. And then it's going to set the stage for people to want to be part of a mastermind group that can continue to push each other, hold each other accountable, and get each other to not just the next level, but the next 2 or 3 levels that would otherwise be out of reach.
Yeah, and you guys learn a ton from the speakers, Lenny, Rob, all the other speakers that they have there. But it's not even just about that. It's the after hours and networking with the guys in the industry from all over the country that are doing different things and learn from one another. That's where a lot of the power is going to come from. And I said the mastermind group, like, it's very, very powerful. I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without being a mastermind group. Hands down, I wouldn't be. So definitely recommend you guys all attend. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fire. I know I'm bringing my team with me, a few of my executives with me as well. Obviously, I'll bring my podcast stuff, do some podcasts on there. I'll bring my mic, walking around doing like man in the street videos. So it's going to be fun.
Nice. I'm excited for that. I look forward to meeting your team in person too. Like you mentioned, the after hours and being able to network with some of these people. I have a lot of just questions and ideas that I'd love to just see people tear apart or inject new ideas into it. And your team has had such cool exposure to different areas. I really look forward to interacting with them.
Cool. Now, I know we have 6 minutes left, but I have to know, like, did you always want to be an author?
I think there was a little bit of an itch. I remember back in first grade, I lost the young authors contest to Sherry about some stinking dancing pickle. So I'm like, man.
But then Chris Voss, like, that's just not like just anyone.
No, yeah, that was a pretty significant piece. It was more driven, like the author itch was super fun to scratch, but it really was driven by when we built things, it was all about just the hard work. Going back to the start of our conversation about wrestling, it was just like, let's just grind. Like, let's get out there. We know the hard work pays off and it's going to suck and we're going to get beat up. But you get to a point where you've done that and you don't really have a story to share. It's hard to tell people like, no, the heart of our company is we just worked really hard and went out, and it's not super relatable. And so I've been looking for something that I felt like really matched that we could build our brand story around. And when I read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, it highlighted a lot of book. Yeah, it's a really good book. It highlighted a lot of weaknesses in myself that I had been ignoring and just the way I was going about treating people and communicating with people. And so that started a whole new chapter in my life as far as things I was studying and learning. And I kept attending his seminars and conferences and that type of stuff. And in one of those, he pitched the idea, and the basis of the book being about empathy and understanding in business was really the direction I had been going. And it has so much to do with the pest control industry. Like, we have to be able to have empathy for that person that came from a different culture and doesn't know how to clean. They don't understand what you say when you say, yeah, clean the kitchen. And we've got to be able to look at a house from a mouse's perspective and say, well, not looking at this as a person, but as a mouse, how would I get in? What would I be after? And so it just seemed to be the perfect fit. And his idea, since it was based around empathy, was, having a bunch of different perspectives in the book. And so that's much more manageable to jump in and contribute a chapter to an overall purpose rather than have to come up with something all on my own. And I really think that's what the whole thing should be about. Like, if we, rather than tackling the pest control industry as this one siloed operator, and I'm against the whole world and everybody with a different pest control company is my enemy, I'd much rather be collaborative and have empathy for them and work well with them. I love working on the MPMA with other professionals and being able to do good for the industry as a whole. And it just was such a perfect fit. I dived in, and I'm glad I did. It was a success and super fun to do.
Yeah, and I know that I was super excited for you. It's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then, you brought up like the up-leveling the industry as a whole. That's the whole purpose of this podcast from day one. That's what it was about. I get to learn along the way, from people like yourself, but everyone else gets to learn too. And like, my goal is the old industry. I just want to flip it upside down on its face and just make it 2024. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love you. You have just such a perfect purpose in that. It's super fun to follow and hear what you're doing. And it is really authentic, that mission that you have behind this. And it's really clear in the messages that are being shared. And there's really fun to relate to and really easy to apply principles that are coming out of it. So I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. And what I've noticed, I came from the lawn care world, right? And everybody loved helping everybody. That's just how it was. It was awesome. You could go anywhere in the country and anyone would help you. I got into pest control, later on, and it wasn't quite the same. Like, why is this? It's so strange. So I said, no, I'm just going to share everything that I'm doing. I'll make all the videos behind the scenes in front, like a bug. I don't care. I'll show everyone what I'm doing. Everyone's always welcome to my shop. So I have people flying in all the time just to come check it out. Like, I'm an open book. Like, if I get to teach someone a better way of doing things, cool. If I get to learn something, awesome. Like, there's no secrets here by any means.
What a great example. And I think so many industries, besides pest control, but so many would benefit from that. If you see something wrong in the culture, rather than just complaining about it or whining about it, just jump in and change it. And, one guy, Jonas, he's just stepping in and changing the culture of the entire pest industry. It's awesome.
It's fun. And I get to learn along the way. But yeah. Cool, man. Well, like I said, I told you I'd cut it off at 4:00, and it is now 3:58 my time. And I know you're busy. I'm busy. Got to go to baseball tonight and all that fun stuff. But again, Rob, you're a stud. It's been an honor to get to know you. You're, a guy I look up to as well. So thanks for taking time with us as a family here today.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Good luck at the baseball game. Hope your kids smash it.
Awesome. And I will see you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Will do. We'll see you.
Yeah, we're going to put the link to your book, and we're going to put a link to the event in the bio. So make sure you guys go click on that. Make sure to buy Rob's book. I think everyone should read it.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, I'll talk to you guys soon. Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, obviously, but the podcast isn't free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends and your family. So please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about the business or your life by me or my guests, send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about any personal business coaching, check out our website at www.pestcontrolmillionaire.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again on the next one.